Hey guys, welcome to level 4 practice test for Praxis Elementary Education. So this is the hardest practice test of the 4, at least that's what most people think. Obviously there are 4, level 1 is the easiest. Like all of our other practice tests, the questions are all in the description with the answer choice possibilities. So the best thing to do is go ahead, if you haven't already, answer all the questions and then start watching the video to see how we go about solving each of these. And additionally, we do have a mobile app which will be out in early February for both Android and iOS. Thousands of questions, detailed feedback for each question. As you answer questions, we will figure out where your weaknesses are, and we'll have recommended videos based on these knowledge gaps, if there are any. Most people have some. So that makes the customization part better than if you're just trying to pick out the videos on your own. Anyways, it'll be free to install, study anytime, anywhere, and I think it's going to be a big hit, so I hope you like it. Anyway, the best way to know when the app is out is just to subscribe to the channel, and then you'll be getting updates once the app is ready to go. Okay, let's get going here. Question number 1. So on this one we have 17 total questions. Find the y-intercept of the line that includes points 0, 4, and 5, 3. Okay, so for y-intercept, we have a couple of steps. And so the first is finding slope. Okay, so like when you have these coordinates like that, so sometimes it's people have it's just been a minute since they've done a question like this, and other times we didn't really know it when we learned it back in the day, so we need to kind of like get that learning going a little bit. Okay, so I'm drawing out there x1, y1, and x2, y2. Okay, and then when we have slope, it's y2 minus y1. Okay, so if we sort of draw this out even further, right, we have 0, 4. So 0 is x1, 4 is y1, and then we have 5, 3. Okay, and so first thing we have to do is find slope. And so slope is going to be y2 minus y1, or 3 minus 4, divided by x2 minus x1, or 5 minus 0. Okay, and then when we subtract this out, 3 minus 4 is negative 1, and 5 minus 0 is 5, and there's our slope. Okay, so that's how we find slope. Right, so that could be a question in and of itself, is just finding slope. It probably will be. But for y-intercept, we do that, we find slope, and then we need to plug it into this formula, which maybe you heard once upon a time. Y equals mx plus b. And b is the y-intercept. Right? We would think it's y, but it is not. And then we're just going to plug it in. So we're going to take these two. You could do either one. Okay? Right? And so 0 is x and 4 is y, right? So 4 equals, and then the slope we just found is m. All right, so you just kind of have to get used to some of this stuff. M is slope. Negative 1/5, we put in that slope that we just found right here. X is 0, right? We plugged in 4 for y. We're plugging in 0 for x plus b. Okay, and remembering b is what we're solving for. B is the y-intercept. Okay, so when I go negative 1/5 times 0, it's just going to equal 0, right? And then we're just left with 4 equals 0 plus b, or just 4 equals b. Okay, again, b is y-intercept right there. Okay, so if that was confusing at all, you can certainly leave a comment for us and we'll respond. But in the description below all the questions are links to videos and it will reference specifically like this video for question number 1, right? So if it's confusing, watch the video, get to see a few more examples, get more comfortable with the process. And then the app is also where there's a lot of value, right? As getting more and more use at practicing, answering questions, and getting feedback based on your answer. All that stuff, very valuable. Okay. Rectangle with an area of 20 and a perimeter of, area of 24 and a perimeter of 20 must have a short side length of, okay, so let's think about what they're telling us here. We got a rectangle, right? And we have length, we have width. Okay, and they're saying that and then they're saying we're trying to find the short side, which is the width. Okay, and so you can do complicated math if you choose to, right? And there's ways to get it correct doing that, but you know, one of the nice things about standardized tests is you don't have to show your work. So what I would do is just plug in these numbers and see which one works. Okay, so if I plug in 3, let's say, okay, so if I plug in 3 right here, right, and then we said the area is 24, right, and so that would mean this would have to be an 8. Okay, so 3 times 8 is 24, so that does give us an area of 24. But 3 plus 8 is 11, right? And then you'd have 11 on the other side as well. Here and here. 11 plus 11 is 22, doesn't work out, right? And then I would just go to the next one. Okay, so I'll draw one more for us, right? So if the short side is 4, that would mean the long side is 6, because 4 times 6 is 24, right? And then if I put 6 over here, 4 plus 6 is 10, and then 4 plus 6 is 10, right? That gives us 20, and so we know that answer B is correct. So in this kind of question, I would just do the guess and check, right? Just pick their answers and plug it in, see if it works. Much better than having to go and do a bunch of algebra. Volume of a cube with edge length of 6. Okay, so really the key here is that we know that for cube, for volume, it's just a to the third, right? And so all that really means is we plug in 6 to the third, right? And 6 times 6 is 36. 36 times 6 is that, 216. There's our answer. Answer choice D. Okay, so like you get like these math questions, so having memorized like all the different volume and surface area type questions that you might have to deal with, like they are on the Praxis Elementary Ed exam. But remember, we put this in level 4 for a reason, which is like there's a bunch of stuff to memorize just to get one question right, where not nearly as difficult as, for example, memorizing that the area of a circle equals pi r squared, right? So which was in an earlier level. I believe that was level 2, right? So go in order. Make sure you got all the concepts down for level 1 and 2 and 3 before we jump into having to memorize all the different volumes that you might be stuck with, right? Or like these things about y-intercept, more complicated to go ahead and do this. You're certainly capable of getting it right. I know every single person is, if you put in the time just to either re-remember or to learn how to do this kind of problem. Same thing here. So I would just go in order. Like we put these in levels for a reason, right? And it's really to make it easier for you, right? Level 4 should be the last things that you're working on. So there shouldn't still be things in level 3 that you don't understand that you're trying to get level 4. Okay, we got a couple of economic questions here. What is the impact of high tariffs on the economy? So tariffs are taxes imposed on imported goods. They will increase the price of the good in the domestic market. Domestic producers benefit because they receive higher prices. The government benefits by collecting tax revenues. domestic industries benefit from a reduction in competition because import prices are artificially inflated. In theory, unemployment rates go down because of less competition from foreign trade. So that was a long way of saying that the impact of high tariffs on the economy is that the price of goods in the domestic market goes up. Federal Reserve changing the interest rate is an example of monetary policy. We'll talk about the Fed here for a sec. Right? So again, like there's a lot of this true for a lot of this test is we want to know the basics. Okay, we don't need to know everything about the Federal Reserve, but we do need to know that monetary policy involves changing the interest rate and influencing the money supply. Central banks, that's what the Federal Reserve is in the US, have typically used monetary policy to either stimulate an economy into faster growth or slow down over fear of issues like inflation. Fiscal policy, on the other hand, involves the government changing tax rates and levels of government spending to influence aggregate demand in the economy. Right? So we would like to be able to differentiate monetary policy and fiscal policy. That is a common economic question on the PRAXIS. Okay, longitude line that divides Earth into Eastern and Western Hemispheres is the Prime Meridian. So a prime meridian is a meridian, which means a line of longitude in a geographical coordinate system at which longitude is defined to be at 0 degrees. If one uses directions of east and west from a defined prime meridian, then they can be called Eastern Hemisphere and Western Hemisphere. Okay, the Earth's tilt, which is 23.5 degrees, helps to explain variation in sunlight. Because of the tilt of the axis, not all places receive the same amount of sunlight at the same time. Which of these is an example of how geography can be used to interpret the past? So what we want to know is that in 1848, California's most famous gold rush began. This quickly led to worldwide immigration to California following the discovery of gold. The growth of the state, as well as the city of San Francisco, followed. So we want answer choice D, discovery of gold. Impacts the development of California. Okay, and then jumping into some science here. What is permanent change in the chemical nature of DNA? That is a gene mutation. Okay, so we'd like to be familiar with all of these terms here. So a gene mutation is a permanent alteration in the DNA sequence that makes up a gene, such that the sequence differs from what is found in most people. Gene deletion is a mutation in which part of a chromosome or a sequence of DNA is missing. A gene translocation is a chromosome abnormality caused by rearrangement of parts between non-homologous chromosomes. And then finally, a gene inversion is a chromosome rearrangement in which a segment of a chromosome is reversed end to end. Okay, so again, we're at level 4. The science questions get a little bit harder too. If any of that sounded confusing, certainly leave a comment. Let us know which parts did not make sense, or take a look at the video that goes over this in more detail. Just look for the video that links to question 9 at the bottom of the description. Which of the following is not an integral part of natural selection? That would be mutation. So within a species, individual variations exist naturally. Some organisms are faster, more colorful, bigger, or smarter than others in their species. Individual variations sometimes are helpful, sometimes they're neutral, sometimes they're harmful. The reproductive rates of individuals are unequal or favored based on environmental pressures. Environmental conditions determine the reproductive success of certain individuals because they possess a trait that allows them an advantage in that environment. Individuals who are able to provide the necessary food, shelter, and avoid predation reproduce more successfully than others. So that was kind of a long way of saying that what these three, the first three answer choices though, A, B, and C, variation, differential reproduction, and heredity are an integral part of natural selection, but mutation is not. Okay, potential energy question. At what point does a boy on a roller coaster have the most potential energy? And the answer is at the height of the ride, 25 meters off the ground. The higher an object or person is above the ground, the more gravitational potential energy it or they have. Okay. Stoves and matches are examples of objects that conduct thermal energy. Right? We want to be able to know what thermal energy is. We really need to know all of these terms. Thermal energy is the energy that comes directly from heat. This heat is generated by the movement of tiny particles within an object. The faster these particles move, the more heat is generated. And we got about 5 questions left here. The unit for electric potential, that is the volt. And let's talk about these for a second. So the volt, that is the derived unit for electric potential. 1 volt is defined as the difference in electric potential between 2 points of a conducting wire. The watt is a unit of electrical power. The ohm is a unit of electrical resistance, right? And so we need to know just exactly that. Just that 1 sentence definition so we can differentiate watt, volt, and ohm. The belief that a particle attracts every other particle in the universe using a force is known as gravitational force. So this relates to Newton's law of universal gravitation or gravitational force, which states that a particle attracts every other particle in the universe using a force that is directly proportional to the product of their masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. Okay, so really knowing that Newton universal gravitation relates to gravitational force. Again, I would be focused on, even within science, level 3, level 2, level 1 stuff before we get into Newton's theories. Just a little more to remember there. Which cell organelle contains DNA and directs the activities of the cell? That is the nucleus. Nucleus directs all cell activities. It contains the hereditary material of the cell, which is the DNA found in chromosomes. The nucleus, should be mentioned, is encapsulated by the nuclear membrane. Okay, which cell organelle is the site for energy producing aerobic reactions? That is the mitochondria. So mitochondria is often referred to as the powerhouse of the cell, and that can even be a question, like, which one of these is the powerhouse of the cell? It is where most energy generating reactions of aerobic cellular respirations occur. ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate, is produced in the mitochondria using energy stored in food. And finally, last question for level 4. If a true breeding dark purple flower plant and a true breeding white flower plant are crossed, what is the result of the first generation of plants? And what we want to know is that it's a dark purple flower plant. Right? This is Gregor Mendel's famous pea plant experiment. And the resulting law of segregation. The F1 generation is 100% capital P, lowercase p, so like that. That's F1. And what that means is that the first generation is dark purple. F2 generation is 25% capital P, which means homozygous dominant purple flowers. 50% capital P, lowercase p, which is heterozygous purple flowers, and 25% both lowercase p, which means homozygous recessive, and white flowers. This means that the white characteristic reappears in the second generation. The phenotype is 3-to-1, purple to white. Okay, so we have a video that goes over all of this, and again, like, well, certainly not too impossible to understand, but requires more knowledge, as far as the law of segregation and all these dominant and recessive traits. So I would focus on this as one of the last things I was concerned about for the PRAXIS elementary education exam. So with that, we are at the end of the level 4 practice test. I hope that the video is helpful for you. If you have any comments, questions, please don't hesitate to leave them. We will get back to you as soon as we can. And don't forget about that app, right? The app will be a great study tool for you. Subscribe so that you can know when the app is out, or if you're watching this and it's already past early February, we will have a link right in the description, and go ahead and download it and let us know what you think.